Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are settling into what might be the single most important junction point in the golf swing, P4.
Yeah, P4, that precise moment the backswing finishes and, well, everything starts changing direction for the downswing.
Exactly. It's not just a picture, right?
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
P4 is, it's the ultimate checkpoint. Think of it like the maximum loaded position. Everything that came before.
You turned, set your wrists, shifted weight, all that.
Precisely. It all culminates right there at P4 to generate, maximum stored energy. If you can get P4 aligned with your natural biomechanics, well, the downswing just becomes infinitely simpler.
And that's the real challenge, isn't it? There isn't just one perfect P4 out there.
No way!
If you try to copy some tour pro who generates power completely differently than you do, well, you're probably setting yourself up for failure.
You really are.
So our mission today is to unpack this BioSwing Dynamics framework. We want to define exactly how this critical energy storage position looks for the three main types: upper core, middle core, and lower core players.
And understanding your specific P4. That's the key. It's honestly a shortcut to better consistency, more speed, and much better timing. We're basically laying out three distinct blueprints today.
And your job listening is to figure out which one fits you.
Okay, so maybe let's start with some context. Why P4? Why is it so critical?
Right. What makes it the linchpin?
Well, because P4 essentially dictates your delivery path into the ball. It's the highest point, right? The moment where your body coil and your wrist hinge are fully loaded up.
So whether you're set for a steep attack angle or a shallower one, that's decided here.
Pretty much. It's determined right there at the top. And those angles, they're really defined by where your power is coming from.
Okay, yeah. Let's quickly remind everyone about these core types we're using from BioSwing Dynamics.
Good idea. So the core type basically tells us where the kinetic chain really cooks off. Your upper core player, they're all about mobility in the shoulders and upper spine. Their stored energy is mostly from that rotational coil.
Got it. Upper body rotation focus.
Then you've got the middle core player. This is your balanced, synchronized type. They prioritize efficient, matched rotation between upper and lower body.
Okay, the connector.
And finally, the lower core player. They're focused on ground forces, hip rotation. Their power is built from the ground up. They store energy through creating this deep, powerful base.
That makes total sense. So if your engine is the upper body, the structure at P4 has to really maximize that upper body coil.
Right.
But if your power comes more from the lower body, then the P4 structure needs to maximize depth and that lower body engagement.
Exactly. Let's dig into what that actually looks like for each type.
All right, let's start with the upper core P4.
Right.
The visual here is kind of that tall tower look,
Yeah.
wide, lifted, powerful looking.
Yeah, it's all about maximizing the width of the swing arc.
The height really stands out.
It does. The hands get positioned really high and noticeably away from the body. That maximizes the lever length and the lead arm. It's typically elevated, often clearly above shoulder level. Sometimes it's parallel or even a bit high relative to the shoulder plane itself.
And the sources mentioned the trail elbow helps create that width, right? It's high, elevated, almost looks like it's winging out a bit behind the torso.
Yeah, definitely not tucked in tight like you see with some other types.
So what's the crucial detail here for rotation?
Okay, this is fascinating. These players maximize their potential energy through their shoulder turn. They often get past 90 degrees of coil relative to the target line.
Wow, past 90.
Yeah, this massive shoulder turn creates that huge X factor, that separation. And their upper spine tilts slightly away from the target too, which helps preserve the space they need for that big turn.
Wait, okay, I gotta stop you. For years, many of us were taught turning shoulders past 90 degrees was like a bad thing, a sway, or maybe getting too flat.
Right, a common concern.
So if I'm an upper core player, how do I get that huge coil without falling into something like a reverse pivot?
That is a great question, and it really comes down to the structure. The stability has to come from the lower body. For these players, the hips need to stay relatively stable. They resist over-rotating.
So they anchor it.
Exactly. It allows the weight to feel centered or maybe loaded just slightly into the trail heel. That anchors the whole structure. So that massive upper body coil is being resisted and maximized against that stable base.
Got it. So the tall tower stands firm because the lower body is acting like a solid foundation.
Yeah.
That allows that huge separation up top.
Yep. And that whole setup naturally encourages a steeper, more compressive kind of downswing delivery. Power comes from the top down.
Okay, moving on to the middle core. We shift from that tall tower idea to maybe something like a tight spring.
Right. This type is all about synchronization, less separation, more connection.
Exactly. It's generally more compact, feels neutral, and is really biomechanically efficient. It values mashing movements over maximizing stretch or width. So if upper core was maximizing vertical width, middle core is about functional connection, keeping things together.
Precisely. Their lead arm usually finishes at, or maybe just slightly above, shoulder height. But the key difference is the hands stay much closer to the body compared to the upper core player. It's a more controlled arc.
And the club shaft.
Typically right on plane, or maybe just a touch laid off. It's that sort of classic textbook neutral look at the top.
And the wrist set here seems pretty distinct too.
Yeah, it is. We usually see a very natural horizontal hinge. It just sets the club cleanly at about 90 degrees to the lead forearm.
Yeah,
Simple, functional, less need for manipulation coming down.
makes sense. What about rotation? Is it balanced?
Very balanced. Shoulders turn right around that 90-degree mark, and it's matched really well by controlled pelvic rotation, usually somewhere between, say, 40 and 45 degrees.
So they preserve their posture better because the upper and lower body are turning more together.
Exactly. They maintain that initial setup posture really well, and the trail elbow really reinforces that connected feeling. It folds nicely in front of the torso, staying quite close to the side.
Okay, so if connection is the goal here, what's the most common trap middle core players fall into when trying to achieve this P4?
That's a good one. Often they try to overconnect. They get too focused on staying centered and end up making the swing too short or restricted.
How so?
They might restrict that 40-45 degrees of pelvic turn because they're afraid of moving off the ball, but doing that actually reduces their rotational potential energy.
Ah, so they choke off the turn.
Yeah, if you're a middle core player, you need to feel that full loading into the trail, hip, and heel. That braces you for that smooth, neutral, rotational downswing. Don't cut off the rotation needed to get there. All right, now for the lower core player. If the upper core is tall and wide, the lower core is deep and compact. Think deep coiled barrel.
Right.
These players generate their power from the ground up, so they demand a flatter, shallower P4 position.
Yeah, the contrast is really striking. The club seems to travel much deeper behind the body. I've seen swings where the hands look almost tucked in behind the trail shoulder blade.
They absolutely can be. The lead arm is often positioned distinctly below the shoulder plane. It angles more aggressively across the chest.
So the hands are deep.
Very deep. And that naturally results in a club shaft that's flatter, shallower. Often it points quite noticeably laid off, left of the target for a righty.
And to get that deep coil while still controlling the club, the wrist hinge must be different again, right?
It is. We typically see a strong vertical hinge with these players. They tend to maximize their wrist set earlier in the backswing.
Ah, setting it early.
Yeah, it helps create that incredibly compact, very set look at the top. And the trail elbow, it's tightly tucked, often positioned behind the rib cage, really supporting that flatter path. It's basically the polar opposite of the upper core's high flying elbow.
Okay, interesting. And what about the torso rotation compared to the hips?
Well, the torso rotation itself might actually be a bit more conservative, maybe stopping just short of 90 degrees sometimes. But the hips, they are doing the real heavy lifting rotation.
So they're maximizing their lower body capacity.
Totally. The hips have rotated significantly, creating this massive trail side depth. The weight feels fully loaded into the trail glute and heel. It's all about maximizing the potential for ground force generation.
And this whole P4 setup naturally prepares them for a shallower path into the ball.
Exactly. It makes it much easier to deliver the club from the inside out, powered by that strong lower body drive.
Okay, wow. That was 3 very distinct destinations for P4. We had the tall, wide power structure for the upper core,
Right.
the stable connected synchronization for the middle core,
Yep.
and the compact deep rotation for the lower core.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's try to synthesize this. If I put like a virtual ruler across the shoulders of an upper core player and a lower core player at P4, what's the single most dramatic visual difference I'd spot?
Probably the tilt, the upper body tilt. The upper core player will show significant tilt away from the target. That's what enables that high vertical arm position and that wide arc.
Makes sense.
Whereas the lower core player, they'll tend to be more centered, really focused on coiling over their trail thigh. That creates the depth, but it reduces that amount of upper body side bend.
So it's really a contrast between height and depth.
Exactly. Height versus depth.
Okay, so how does the listener start to apply this? How can they do a quick self-check, maybe look at their swing video, and figure out which core type they lean towards, and if they're chasing the wrong P4?
Yeah, good question. A simple starting point is just look at your hands at the top. Where do they naturally want to go? Do you find your hands getting high and wide pretty easily?
Okay.
Or do your hands naturally seem to track deeper, maybe more across your chest? That's a big clue. For example, if you constantly battle steepness coming down,
Yeah.
you might be a natural lower core player who's trying to force the club up high, like an upper core player.
Ah, that's a really key distinction. Okay, let's talk about those mismatches, the pain points.
Mhm.
Say I am a naturally deep lower core player, but I keep trying to force that high hands, wide arc, upper core P4.
Mm.
What specific swing faults am I pretty much guaranteed to see?
Oh, you're almost guaranteeing a loss of posture first. That often leads straight into a reverse pivot where you end up leaning towards the target at the top
Why does that happen?
because your hips want to rotate deeply. If you resist that and try to lift your arms instead, your upper body is forced to kind of stand up and tilt the wrong way.
Gotcha.
This makes the club shaft get incredibly steep. And that leads to, well, fat shots, slices, or this really uncomfortable feeling of having to aggressively reroute the club late in the downswing. And your trail elbow. It'll probably look like a flying chicken wing because you've totally lost that connection.
Ugh. I remember trying to force that wide arc swing years ago. That flying elbow was my signature move.
Yeah.
Okay, let's flip it. What if I'm a naturally tall, wide upper core player, but I try to force that deep, compact lower core P4? Maybe I'm trying too hard to shallow the club out. What goes wrong then?
Then you lose your primary power source, the coil. Your upper body needs that mobility and stretch, and your lower body provides the stability. If you force a really significant hip rotation, that lower core move, you essentially unwind your chest before you've even finished the backswing.
So you kill the X factor.
You kill the X factor. The result is often a really short, quick, almost jerky turn. The club can get violently laid off or flat at the top because there's no resistance. And that usually leads to pushes, hooks, and just a general loss of speed because you haven't fully wound up your engine. You basically choked off your natural power.
Man, okay. The big takeaway here really seems to be that P4 must be tailored to you.
Absolutely.
If your swing videos show a natural deep hip turn,
Yep.
you probably need to embrace that deep coiled barrel structure. Don't fight it. And if you naturally have great shoulder flexibility and a stable lower half, you have to embrace the tall tower to maximize that separation.
Trying to force yourself into a P4 position that doesn't match your body's natural power source, I mean, that's the very definition of fighting yourself.
But probably the biggest barrier to consistency for most amateurs.
It is arguably the single biggest impediment. Use these P4 descriptions we talked about today. Look at your own swing. Try to identify which one feels like it minimizes resistance and maximizes your efficiency. That's the path forward. #outro.
Wow, what a crucial deep dive into P4. It really is the engine room of the backswing, isn't it? Where all that potential energy gets fully stored up.
It is. It's that critical transition point where stored energy is about to convert into kinetic energy into
You
speed.
talked a lot about maximum potential energy being loaded at P4.
Right. But that stored energy, it has to be activated and activated quickly to generate real speed down into the ball.
And that transition is explosive, or it should be. You hit P4, backswing's done, boom, the downswing fires almost instantly. The source's point is towards the next critical position, P5, which they call the peak of the downturn.
Yeah, think about that transition for just a second. P5 is reached maybe just a fraction of a second after P4, and that position, P5, is where maximum energy is actually charged and ready to be unleashed.
So the question becomes,
If you've loaded up effectively at P4, how quickly does that coil need to fire? How fast must the hips clear or the arms drop or whatever your sequence is to reach that peak charge point at P5? It's an incredibly rapid fire sequence, that speed of activation, that instantaneous transition. That's definitely something worth thinking about as you look at your own P4 position this week.